We've all seen the movie The Matrix. It was interesting and fun on the big screen of the TV, but has it become a bit too real in your own life? Are you seeing glitches in the Matrix and trying to figure out what's happening? Have you been told that you've been tricked and that you need to fight against what they've done to you? The deception. Whether you're just beginning to notice, or if you've been searching for a more peaceful and congruent way to live without battling them, you're in the right place. I'm Ken, and I'll be joined by Eliza and Rena Stella. Let's explore together on the Liberty Ark. We're back for episode number 23 of the Liberty Ark Podcast. I'm here again with Eliza and with Rena Stella. As always, we're going to be doing some work with a book called The Great International Heist by Rebecca and Jonathan Rodriguez. We're on episode number 23, and I'm going to bring that up. Born into the Big Trust. So this should be kind of a fun conversation. And I guess you want to just do, we're going to let Eliza read all the way through it, and then probably just do page by page, do you think, tonight? I think that's best.
That's a great idea, Ken.
Okay. So go right ahead, Eliza.
I'm on board with that. Sounds great. Okay, episode 23. Wow. Born into the Big Trust. In modern Western cultures, it is strongly suggested when a baby is born that it be registered. The process begins with a certificate of live birth, which then allows for the creation of a birth certificate. Many reasons are provided as to why the child should be registered and a birth certificate created. However, one significant potential reason is never stated, and it is rooted in the current reality of humanity being enslaved by debt. Outlined in Bouvier's Law Dictionary, there is a maxim, partus sequitur ventrum, meaning the offspring follows the condition of the mother. This means that the status of a child is determined by the condition of the mother at the time of birth. If the mother is a slave, the child is also considered a slave, irrespective of the father's status. Conversely, if the mother is free, the child is born free. In this disguised enslavement system, mothers are typically seen as the informant during the birth registration process, meaning they are responsible for providing information and recording the details of their newborn. This concept is similar to that of a modern informant in law enforcement who reports on the activities of a criminal. As the child ages, they too will be expected to inform on themselves, both confessing to and confirming their belligerent, criminal, and enslaved status. This will be accomplished by completing countless forms within their lifetime in order to access all the promised privileges and benefits disguised as rights. The birth certificate process creates a grantor trust between the baby and the government, where the baby, born as an indentured servant, has their future labor and assets pledged as collateral for their life performance to the contract. It also makes them a ward of the state. The birth certificate also creates an artificial person, which gives rise to a social security number that allows one to participate in public commerce, opening bank accounts, enroll in school, volunteer to pay taxes, register property, sign up for the draft, etc.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is an interesting concept, isn't it? And it might be really new to a lot of people. And a lot of people might have heard a lot of stories of all types related to this concept. So we're going to
Can I start by asking something, Ken?
Certainly.
That you and Eliza would probably be better at is born into the big trust. Mm-hmm. Like, what does that mean?
Well, where was it?
What is the big trust?
We read that somewhere, didn't we? Which page was that on? Yeah.
That's actually on the first slide.
Yeah. Well, I know that's where that was, but we talk about the trust.
We talk about it later. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a trust.
Yeah. So the grantor trust between the baby and the government, where the baby is born as an indentured servant. Now, that's an interesting concept, where their future labor and assets are pledged as collateral for life performance to the contract, which relates back to what we were talking about in previous podcasts about not current stuff, but history, where a lot of people would indenture themselves as servants and contract their labor in order to accomplish something they're trying to accomplish in life, which didn't always turn out to be perfect by any means. But this is saying that everybody basically is born into an automatic trust situation. And that's a claim. I don't think anybody can demonstrate to you the physical trust document, right? But it's going by the methodology, basically, of the indentured servant, because most of us aren't born into a trust baby family that is wealthy. And so our future labor is going to contribute to the society, basically.
And that's through the birth registration, right? Through the birth registration process, which is the combination of the certificate of live birth and birth certificate, which is like a legal structure per se.
Well, that's what we're heading toward, try to understand. So right now, all we're saying is that in Western cultures, pretty much everybody has to have registration at birth. Right? There's nothing innately necessary about that, of being human, right? But the government pretty much forces you to do it, right? And I think that's kind of what the conversation tonight is going to be all about. That hasn't always been done, right? So it's not an absolute requirement for life by any means. But try to get born in a hospital and not get a birth certificate. There's some reason.
Yeah. So when you say forces, because I'm like going back, right? It's was more like standard operating procedure is how I looked at it, right?
That's how it gets conveyed. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. Custom. Right?
Custom.
Custom is a big word we'll see over and over throughout these conversations, because it wasn't really until about 1900 that birth certificates even began to enter into the U.S. It's been done in other countries, in Europe and so forth, earlier, but people have been born for years and years and years without birth certificates, right? There's a reason why.
And if there was,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. If recording was done, it was typically a family Bible or other family legacy book, or we'd call it the family tree, and that was the record.
It was private,
as
intimate.
Ken mentioned, centuries, right? Or even the county record. You'd go down and you would record that there was a birth, but it was not a certificate. It wasn't a certificate that was issued.
So that's what we're going to kind of explore this evening is why did that become such standard operating procedure?
Now, before we go to the next slide, Ken and Eliza, how does and I know that's what we're going to try to explain tonight, but certificate of live birth and birth certificate, how do they tie in my eyes, almost like the same thing? But I know there's a difference there. How do they tie in?
The birth certificate is a vital or vital statistics certificate that's held by the state, right? That's state or county? I think it's state, because that's whose name's at the top of it, in fact, is the state. The certificate of live birth is what the physician that births the baby signs with the mom and dad's name on it. And that's a county document, as I understand it. And that gives rise.
And it gets confusing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the state where I was born, both pieces of paper are called original certificate of live birth. Original. From everything I've learned and living, in various countries, in the U.S., it's all the same. If you try to get the significance and the numbers being tied into a trust, etc., in the United States, there's pretty much one document that you can access. They're both pretty much called certificate of live birth. And even though one may lead up to the other, the one that you can get is the birth certificate. Even if it's at the county level, it's still with vital records. In the other countries, in Canada or the other Commonwealth countries, or in Australia, you have actually a certificate of live birth, which is more, and then you have the birth certificate. They actually have two separate documents that signify different things. One is the record of the birth, one is the registration of the birth.
Yeah, even in the U.S., depends on what state you're in as to how it's presented. I'm the most familiar with Missouri because that's where I am. But I have a copy, not the original, of the certificate of live birth and the baby footprints and the whole bit. But they're all copies, right? Because those originals are never given up to mom. That goes over to whoever, originally to the county. I don't know what happens to it after that. I've heard lots of rumors as to what happens. But that's what gives rise to a birth certificate, which you can get, right? But without that underlying original document that the doctor signed, you wouldn't be able to get a birth certificate issued.
See, I have both as well, but was told that they are signifying the same thing. I have the one with the signatures that is at the county level, but both were actually signed by a registrar. One has all the seals on it, one does not, but they were leading to the same thing. And again, we have so much confusing information on what we can use these for and what they mean.
Right.
State by state.
You can't even, at least in my state, you can't get a copy of that signed one where the physician actually signed it after you leave the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, I got one. My mother got one for me.
My mom got
1979.
Yeah, my mom got mine too, but I can't go get one now. Now,
and I haven't tried recently.
Yeah, in Missouri, they have what's called a short form and a long form. Okay, but neither of them is the handwritten version. They're both they're both printed versions, so they're not originals, although they're certified by the state, so they act as originals. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's.
But that's just a registration that a baby was born. It's not you, obviously, right? It's a piece of paper that's used as in vital records to demonstrate the number of births, the number of like census type data, right, that the government uses, and may have some other reasons for having it there, which we'll try to explore.
We don't know. It really is a black box, don't we?
Yeah, I've heard all kinds of
I think what
stories.
we do know, as we'll be discussing, is one actually at least records the birth and registers it eventually, that it can then move forward to create persons with a social, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But it has a purpose ultimately. So that we can interact in the system.
So maybe like the one, of course, when the baby's born, the application filled out at the hospital is the medical record per se. Then that is sent to the state, or the information's then sent to the county or the state to get the BC generated.
It has to go into a computer system, right? Yeah. So at the hospital, you have physical stuff happening. Right, and the physician is actually putting a signature on that one,
Mm.
and then it goes someplace, and then you get issued a birth certificate typed out that has that data on it, but not the original signatures. And you never get to see that. They don't give access to that original anymore. Right? All you can get is the certified original, which isn't an original. It's a certified copy, basically.
And I think here, Ken, I think here, just so as we get to the slide when we get to it, it's important that we come back to this where when the baby's born, of course, the information is the medical record or the application is filled out. Right there, the mother, right, is naming the baby that was born. And then there's the birth certificate, of course, then gets generated per what we are saying. And it's important that right there we come back to remembering that there's something else taking place once it reaches the county and the state level. That again, I know that the slides, we're going to cover it. I just think that this is a critical point to remember. Certificate of live birth, which is a medical record filled out at the hospital, and then the birth certificate gets created after the fact, that there is a important information there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, it seems very benign, right? And I think most parents, when they have a baby, they really don't think anything of it because it's become custom, right? Now, but before 1900, this wasn't done. And before 1933, it wasn't significantly done. 1933 is when it really became pretty much a requirement. And there's some other things that happened in 1933 that kind of coincide with it and make it kind of interesting, which we'll probably hit here in a little bit.
And I always find it interesting every time I see the word register, like when you get a new computer or whatever it is, you go register it and you're transferring legal title when you register something. So I always go,
And you can't...
Are we registering something here?
Yeah, you can't register yourself, right?
But what are we registering? What are we creating that we are registering?
Yeah, and because that's a concept that it's hard to people to get, I think. Like when you signed up and register for an account online, you're registering something, but it's not you. You can't fit on that computer. And that's, but there's a confusion that happens because that birth certificate has your name on it. It's what mom calls you that's on that birth certificate. And so there's kind of an automatic and customary thinking process that happens without thinking, right? That I am that. That is me.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I think we want to explore a little bit without acting like we actually know the answer to it. But it does create some confusion that occurs, that follows us throughout life, basically, by that confusion of this piece of paper that has my name on it is me, and it registers me in the system. I'm going to question that a little bit as we go through this.
That is so important. Mm-hmm. And this slide is very succinctly written. Mm-hmm. A baby is us. It's the little thing you're cuddling in your arms. Mm-hmm. A child is a legal term of a thing. So we are not registering the baby. We're registering the child, a child.
Legal entity.
So, and legal entity. Mm-hmm. The child is representing the baby, not as a person, not as a people, but as a legal thing.
Mm-hmm. And that,
aren't they tricky?
We'll relate that last sentence. However, one significant potential reason is never stated. and is rooted in the current reality of humanity being enslaved by debt. Now, we've discussed slavery by debt, practically speaking, and later on today, we'll get into a little bit of how this may interrelate. I think we probably ought to wait till we get to some of the later slides to converse about that. But one of the things that happens too, and creates a lot of interesting conversation, is that the birth certificate, if you look at it, it's on bond paper, like a bond or a security. So there's a lot of conversation over exactly what it is, and people think that it's being traded on markets and so forth. I'm not going to draw any clear conclusions on that. I'm just saying that's things that are bounced around because of how those show up. I don't think I want to go any further than that at this point. And they have letters and numbers on the back of them that a lot of people think are CUSIP numbers that represent trading. We'll get into a little more of what we actually know to be true versus what is projected as possible by some people. We'll hit that a little bit later.
And Ken, would it be fair to say right off of this slide that whenever, because I think Eliza was almost getting there when she was saying register, is it fair to say that when we see the word register, because it's on the same slide, that we can relate it to humanity being enslaved or enslaved, quote unquote? Like, should we relate those two words anytime we see register this, register that? Like, there's something along the lines there.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I think that's what happens when we haven't clarified the difference between the piece of paper and me, right? Because when you're registering, you are actually registering the piece of paper because you can't fit into that system, right? But you think you've registered you. And if you volunteer yourself to be the one that's registered, then there's ramifications to that may not need to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the key. We've seen many writings of who is you. When they say you register, you this. In this case, we are registering a thing, okay, for legal ownership. But we can, and as we will repeatedly say, we can be, whether it's trickery or just our lack of comprehension, we can always volunteer to be the thing. And that's the caution. And that's a big part of where we're going with this whole series of how do you discern to not be the thing? And what can you do about all of the history where you've come forward to volunteer to be the thing? And that's exciting. That's exciting.
The importance of knowing who you really are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So the offspring follows the condition of the mother in law, basically. This means that the status of the child is determined by the condition of the mother at the time of birth. Now, if the mother's a slave, which theoretically she's not anymore, theoretically, the child is also considered a slave, irrespective of the father's status. Conversely, if the mother is free, the child is born free. So that's kind of historical situations, right? This will fill itself out a little bit on the next page. So I'm going to go right to the next page, okay? In this disguised enslavement system, in other words, that's what we're saying here. There's maybe something going on it appear to be one thing, but there's something else under the surface that's disguised that creates the enslavement if you don't understand how it's working. Mothers are typically seen as the informant. And interestingly enough, on my certificate of live birth, that's exactly what it says under my mom's name. It says informant.
Mine also, but my father actually signed mine.
Interesting.
So it's not common, but indeed.
So typically seen as the informant during the birth registration process. So the registration of the fact of the birth. It's not registering the baby, it's registering the fact of the birth.
The event. And that's a great point to bring out. We're registering an event.
Mm-hmm. That informant is responsible for providing information and recording the details of the newborn. Okay. Weight, height, all that kind of stuff, and what you're going to be calling them, that we call a name. This concept is similar to that of a modern informant. Now, this is the concept that's going to be hard for people to capture, I think. This concept is similar to that of a modern informant in law enforcement who reports on the activities of a criminal. Now, everybody's heard...
My goodness, the comparison, that's crazy.
Isn't it interesting? So we've all seen on TV shows, you have an informant that's giving you information to turn people in. So I'm going to head right into the next one unless you guys want to say something more about this, because it'll go deeper into the informant, as I recall.
Nope, we're good.
So as the child ages, they'll be expected to inform on themselves, which is exactly what people do. Confessing and confirming their belligerent, criminal, and enslaved status.
That's wild.
You don't think you've done that, do you?
It's like every time we've come forward, as this goes on to say, and sign up thinking that thing, that person is me. Mm-hmm. Every time we've basically committed to be it, the system can't wait to, it's called joinder, right? There are ways, as we'll explore at the end of this whole series, to stop being in joinder with this. But that's exactly what we're doing. Confessing. My goodness.
This will be accomplished by completing countless forms within the child's life or the baby's lifetime in order to access all the promised privileges and benefits that are disguised as rights. So basically, anytime you want something, which we'll list off a few here in a little bit, you're having to sign something in order to get what you want. Eliza, you look like you were going to say something.
And just one thing here, technically it's as the baby ages into adulthood.
Right, yeah.
They'll be expected to inform on themselves. Mm-hmm. It's like, but we are acting in joint, like as if we are this child, which is a legal entity, right?
I'm going to go ahead and change that.
That's just very easy to do. Mm-hmm. They make it easy, if not expected, right?
Yeah, and it just becomes normal to you to give information.
And again, just to clarify it, as we are informing, right, or as they are informing on themselves, we have to clearly know that when you are, it's the name that you're informing on, not you physically.
Very important detail.
It's the name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because you can't be in the system, right? So you can't fit on that computer. You can't fit on that piece of paper. But
they come forward to say, you need to sign, you need to do this. So we think you is us, and we sign in a way that we are admitting that you and you is the same. Mm-hmm. We'll get more into that if it's confusing.
And right at this moment, if I was watching this slide and this explanation that just took place for a second here, I would be like rewinding and like, wait, what? Let me hear that again. And it should like click. Yeah. It should click right there. Just re-listen to this slide here, the few seconds we just spoke.
Even terminology like my bank account. I have a bank account. Well, no, you don't. It's on the bank's records. It's not yours. Right?
And the person is actually utilizing the bank account, not you,
Mm-hmm.
the live man or woman.
Yeah. That term person really confuses people because we think we're a person. But a person is, legally speaking, an artificial entity. It's not flesh and blood.
Yeah.
And I
stuff.
think that keyword of my bank account, my ID card, my passport, I think that's where we get caught. It's like, it's not my bank account, it's the bank account, the passport, the ID. It's not it's not me, it's not you.
Yeah. And if you just take time to look at them, I mean, the passport, what's at the top of the front of the page of the passport? It's a United States passport. It's not my passport. And on your driver's license, it's a state driver's license. It's not your driver's license. It has written there something that looks a lot like what you're called, but it's not yours. It's theirs. They issue it to you. Whoever creates, owns.
Like the birth certificate is not my birth certificate.
Absolutely
it's their registration of an event that you initiated by becoming part of the world. Right. It's like,
and they entrust that certificate to you to utilize.
Thank you. Oh my goodness.
Let's go to the next one here. The birth certificate process creates a grantor trust between the baby and the government, where the baby, born as an indentured servant, has their future labor and assets pledged as collateral for their life performance to the contract. It also makes them a ward of the state. So this is interesting because everybody's heard of CPS, right?
Yes.
Child Protective Services. So how can CPS walk in and take a baby away from a family?
Are they taking the baby or the child?
Well,
and someone thinks
they may have
the
rights.
Baby and the child are the same.
That's right. They have rights to the child because they made it. Because that's the legal entity they produced. But mom and dad made the baby. And he who creates owns.
Okay, wait, I'm going to get silly here for a second. So then CPS knocks at my door and they're there for the child. Are you saying I can just hand them the piece of paper?
I'm not saying what you can and can't do. I'm just saying it's worth exploring difference between the child and the baby.
Gotcha.
And if the concept of he who creates owns holds true, which it does in law, who created the baby and who created the child? But if you don't understand the difference, they take the baby.
Exactly. Scary thought. And another, one other thing it's saying here. Remember a couple of episodes ago, we talked about the old-fashioned system of indentured servitude, where you would basically sign a contract for passage over, but then for a set period of years, your labor and any assets you create were basically part of, they were your collateral of performance, right? That you had to pay off for your freedom. During that time, you were a ward of whoever owned your contract. You were basically a ward of the state. But who is it in those days? You were talking about the live man or woman. Here we're talking about the future labor and assets of the person, of the child. And the child is the ward of the state. But we don't know we in general do not know the difference. So I'm glad we're having this discussion. And again, it's for those who want to take it further, very worth exploring.
And it's confusing because we have so much ingrained, what's the right word? Brainwashing, basically. And we think in a certain way and we utilize words in a certain way, and we don't unpack them and try to figure out what's actually going on. We just roll with the way it's presented to us and what we've always thought was true.
We're indoctrinated.
That's a great word. Yeah.
To the custom.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Now we're going to talk a little bit about the future labor and assets pledged as collateral here in a sec. Let's go to the last page, and then we'll probably refer back to that some, because I think they kind of interrelate with each other, as I recall. Birth certificate also creates an artificial person, which gives rise to a Social Security number. That Social Security number allows one to participate in public commerce, such as opening bank accounts, enroll in school, volunteer to pay taxes, register property, sign up for the draft, etc. So pretty much everybody automatically, whenever they get ready to get a job, they sign up for a Social Security number, right? And that, I think you have to provide your birth certificate when you do that, as I recall.
Well, now the modern
do it at birth.
the modern birth certificates, when that in the hospital, when the informant's basically giving information, it's a little box there to tick. I've seen it. Someone showed me it. Mm-hmm. Little box there that says, get your Social Security number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I was a kid, I got mine at 16 because that's when I got my first job. But nowadays, you're right. They get you right off the bat. And
it's not mandatory.
No.
But they sure make it easy because it's presented in order to get lots of features and benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Can we touch on that first sentence? Maybe we've addressed it, but the birth certificate creates an artificial person. Eliza, you mentioned people earlier. We mentioned baby, but then we mentioned child. And I think at one point we may have said person, but it creates an artificial public figure. Can we just elaborate a little bit more there?
Eliza's good at this one, so I'll let her.
I'm good at this. But this is what we're saying. It is looking at the event of the baby being born. And it is then creating the child, which is a legal term for a fictional entity, which is also the person. It's creating a person. It's creating an artificial entity that can go on to be registered and get a Social Security number. So you cannot register a man or a woman or a baby, but you can register legal fictions. Okay? Mm-hmm. And that's what we're doing. It's the paperwork, basically. Through paperwork, we're creating a little entity, which would, just like you would create a company or anything else.
Gotcha.
Crazy stuff, and it's a great question. And I know we've all discussed this, but I'm glad you're bringing it forth here.
Yeah, and then as it gives rise to the Social Security number, goes along that the lines of even the examples of what we can do once it's established. It actually makes a lot of sense as to why, no matter what it is that's taking place, right? Whether it's opening a bank account, enrolling in school, you need that artificial person name and the Social Security number. Without that, you won't be able to do it.
Yeah, because John Smith doesn't define any one thing, right? There's a zillion John Smiths, right? So the Social Security number is an identifier to that person, John Smith. Right? So that name and that number together isolates an entity that can now be registered because it can fit within the electronic or paper system where you can't. but you associate yourself with that thing that can get registered. Therefore, you think you're registered. Does that make sense?
Yes. So for some of us that have had businesses, we can look at the artificial person as, say, the LLC or the company name or the corporation, and we can look at the Social Security as the EIN that the IRS assigns the LLC, the company name, or the corporation.
Yeah. The difference
It's a good way to
is
say it.
most of us that are in business know we're not the company. Right? We don't get confused with I'm IBM. Clearly not. Right? President IBM isn't IBM. Nobody gets confused with that. But with the Social Security number, almost everybody gets really confused about that and thinks they're it.
It's kind of kooky. Like the little boy or girl attends school, but the little boy or girl cannot enroll in school, cannot be registered for school. So that, when I started reading on a lot of this, I was thinking, okay, the man or woman cannot volunteer to pay taxes. And again, that's very, very revealing. We have to volunteer. It's a voluntary thing. It's the person that volunteers to pay the taxes. The man or woman cannot be required or to pay the taxes. But we come forward and we say we are one and the same as the person. And so the system is quite happy to tax our energy and our labor to put forth.
Yeah, one of the real keys, I think, what you just said was really important. They make you think you have to volunteer to be taxed. Right? But if you're forced to do that, would that not be slavery?
Yes.
And slavery, as I understand it, is not a legal thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's not legal except for if it's voluntary. You can volunteer yourself into slavery. You just can't be forced into slavery under our rule of law, right? But if they can give you confusion enough that you choose to volunteer to be enslaved, nothing wrong with that. It's your choice.
Very much. Or signing up for the draft.
Mm-hmm.
The man or woman cannot enter the draft because contracting, and remember we had some discussion a few episodes back on contracting. Contracting can only take place between like entities, a man and a woman. Like I can go contract to cut my lawn with the boy next door, and we handshake, etc. We have a contract, and an exchange is made. Labor for that's a contract between like entities. Something like signing up for the draft or enrolling in school, that can only take those are little contracts. That can only take place between like entities, fictional entities. The government is a fictional entity, so you thinking we are the same thing, but the fictional entity has to come forth to participate in that contract. And that's a big discussion to wrap your head around that we're discussing here, but it's important.
It is, and that number, Social Security number that allows one to participate in public commerce, that's important, right? Because it's only fictional entities that can participate in public commerce. You, live man or woman, like you just said, can walk over to your next door neighbor and have an agreement between you to do business, but you don't have to give them your Social Security number, right? But try to do public commerce without a Social Security number.
Private commerce versus public commerce.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought commerce had to be talking about an exchange of funds of some sort. But commerce is any sort of contracting or exchange. Mm-hmm. And as you can see how we're talking here, enrolling in school, that's not about it's a contract, but it has generally nothing to do with exchanging. I don't want to say money, but exchanging funds of some sort.
Yeah.
Commerce is a lot of things.
Yes. Raina, Stella, you've been very quiet for
a lot of us probably are unaware that we are operating in commerce on a daily basis, every minute of the day, pretty much.
Yep.
So
yep.
That's all I had to say on that.
We'll peel that onion quite a bit as we proceed on through things, because commerce is almost important as the word contract, and that's a real important word. So
exactly,
we'll get deeper into it over
time. But I'm glad you really differentiated well between private commerce and public commerce. Private commerce between the people, mm-hmm. and public commerce between things, between the fictions,
the persons. And
between persons.
Yeah, because even corporations are considered persons.
Are correct.
All right. I think
What a fun discussion today.
This was a good one.
Wow. Yeah. Raina Stella said it. Maybe you want to back it up a little bit and re-listen if this is new territory for you.
Yeah.
Short, sweet, and simple. I think we nailed it. I think it's definitely important that we capture that difference between you mm-hmm. and that fictional name, the person.
Yeah, I think that's about as basic as you can get with what we're trying to get people to begin to comprehend and get some new gray matter working on that, because we've been so habituated into a way of thinking that it can be shocking and think that it's nuts to think this way until you study it for a while and you find out it's actually how things work in law. So one thing that can really help is go look it up, right? Go look up the definition of person in legal dictionaries.
In legal dictionary, that's important.
Don't trust us.
Definitely.
Ask AI.
And the other thing is just and the stuff you receive, any presentments you receive in the mail, contracts, etc. Some contracts will start out and they'll have your all caps name. We call it the all caps, the person name, which is the thing, and then it will say, subsequently, mentioned as you. It'll say you, or you'll just get a simple notice saying you. But what it's addressed to is that all caps person. Mm-hmm. And so this is it's the trickery, and it plays a mind game on you. But be very aware, who is you? And that we go forward as, a big part of where we're leading to is how, as us, a man or woman, operates the you safely.
And without argumentation.
It becomes fun.
Because I think when people hear that term man or woman, a lot of times they immediately, if they've been navigating these waters for a while, a lot of times what comes to their mind is the argumentation in court. I'm a man or a woman. That's not where we're heading. Right? There's no need to argue.
Point.
No need to argue. But you do have to know, right? It's your responsibility to know. And when you know, then it kind of gets rid of the whole need to argue. Anything else from you guys?
No, the only thing is another thing that we all probably were unaware of is we've been running a business since pretty much forever. And if you can grasp this episode of the way we've explained the you and the person and so forth, you can soon understand how you are going to be able to manage your business more efficiently, a lot better, and that's what we're going to be covering in the future. So grasp this whole concept of today's episode, and I think it's really going to be beneficial for the future ones coming as well.
Great point, Raina Stella. I love it. What a great point to end on.
All right, so this was fun. We will be back next round for number 24.
Okay.
Awesome, guys. Well, it's been great.
Signing off.
Have a good night.
Yes. Good night. Much love. See you soon.
Love you guys.
The views expressed in this Liberty Ark podcast are for informational and educational purposes only. They do not constitute legal or tax advice, and they may not reflect the official positions of anyone at all, really. We want to express our appreciation to the authors of the unpublished manuscript titled The Great International Heist, on which the Liberty Ark podcast is based. Rebecca and Jonathan Rodriguez, the authors, provide courses that go into much greater depth and are available at libertyarkpodcast.com/White Rabbit.